So we turn to our next session, which is a keynote by Jamshyd Godrej on the social responsibility of family business. It's my great pleasure to welcome Jamshyd. Jamshyd, nice to see you. Thank you so much. I know you're in the US, have a busy schedule, and thank you for slotting us into this very busy day today.
Thank you, Professor.
I'm Ravi. Please call me Ravi. I mean, I'm calling you Jamshyd. Don't call me Professor. Please. Thank you. So Jamshyd is the chairman and managing director of the Godrej Enterprise Group. And Godrej and Boyce is a unit of that group. Godrej is a really old company, and I didn't know this, but I grew up with Godrej as a youngster. We all, anyone from India, from my generation, maybe even subsequent generations, you know that Godrej products were all around you. And I didn't know the company is as old as it is. It's founded in 1897, so this is the 128th year of the company. And Jamshyd is the third generation of the family, and I believe his transition to the fourth generation is likely to happen sometime fairly soon. So Godrej is an iconic brand. It's, as I said, it's been made a huge contribution to India's development over the years. It has the interesting trait that it was part of the freedom struggle. The founders were part of India's freedom struggle, and they also interacted with the Mahatma Gandhi as part of that freedom struggle. So there's a huge impact of that legacy on the firm. Jamshyd received the very high honor of a Padma Bhushan, which is awarded by the President of India, and for his contribution, for the company's contributions to India's industrial development. He got his undergraduate degree in engineering from the Illinois Institute of Technology. And I want to thank the president of the Illinois Institute of Technology. Anybody know who that is? Raj Echambadi, who was the dean of our business school until he went and took over IIT in Chicago. And I'm grateful to Raj for introducing me to Jamshyd. And I'm grateful to Jamshyd for introducing me to Farhad. So as you can see, I'm a man with tremendous debts. And my debts seem to accumulate over the years, and I don't know when I will ever pay them off. But so with that, Jamshyd, I want to just start by asking you, what do you think is the impact of the roots of your company as being part of the freedom struggle, the association with Mahatma Gandhi and so on? Did that leave an imprint? And I'm basing this question on research done by my colleague. Where are you, Kunjan? Are you here? Okay. One of my colleagues has actually studied this phenomenon. So would you comment on how your origins, if they still affect what you do today?
Yeah, thank you, Ravi, and hello to all those in the audience. And I presume Farhad is also there, so thank you, Farhad, for being here. Yes, you know, it's a very interesting question. My grandfather's elder brother, Adeshir, who actually was a serial entrepreneur, and when he actually dabbled in many products before he was successful in making padlocks. And I think his point at the time was that the British products that were available in India at the time, were substandard, overpriced, and I don't think that there was enough effort on their part, in promoting their products. So my grandfather's elder brother, Adeshir, my great uncle, he saw this opportunity. And together with local Gujarati panchals, in Bombay especially, in Mumbai, the influence of the Gujarati technicians, panchals, was very high in those days. And they were really good, very inventive. So they not only, they didn't actually reverse engineer British products, they improved on them by forming, these were lever padlocks. And so they developed a patent for a lever padlock that didn't use any springs. And that's our first and original patent. that we have. And I think the reason he was successful is that he could not only offer the product at a better selling price, but that it was a superior product. And I think that set the bar for the future for us, because it was that pioneering spirit of doing something new, something different, that actually set us on our way in those days. And the padlock led to making safes, and the famous way that he used to demonstrate his safe is he would challenge anybody to to put currency notes in the safe and put it on fire. And he said, if the currency notes are not safe after the end of the test, I will replace the currency notes over many times. And that established his reputation. And that pioneering spirit, I think, continues in our group, to this date. I mean, innovation is a way of life for all our companies.
Thank you. That's a wonderful example. Just earlier this morning, we had a discussion about how can Indian companies be more innovative, like the Chinese companies of today. And what the Chinese companies are very good at doing is exactly what you described, which is not only to make a product that is equivalent to what was available from abroad, but to make a better product at a lower price. This combination of being able to deliver both better quality and lower price is something the Chinese companies excel at. And it seems that your grandfather was already doing that many, many years ago. Can you tell us examples of similar things that Godrej might be doing today?
Yeah, well, I think, let me go back a few decades. We have been making refrigerators in India. We were the first manufacturer to make refrigerators in India. And typically, when we started out in the 50s, the refrigerator was made entirely of steel. And the entire inner body, outer body, everything, the shells, everything was steel. And the insulation was, at that time, what was available was glass wool. And we had noticed by then, of course, I joined the business a little later, that the rest of the world had moved to polyurethane foam. So we, our engineers, our technicians and all, developed a product that, used polyurethane foam. And they based their entire campaign in India on the fact that, this was a product that could be made partly of steel, partly of plastics, like the inner shelves. And the insulation was far superior in polyurethane foam. And that made a huge impact at the time. And then, much further down the road, again, staying with cooling products, we had a very interesting session with many innovators. One of the ideas that we had was that, you should innovate products in your own company in such a way that you can sort of, so that the innovated product becomes the new product, rather than letting somebody else from another organization, another company innovate and surpass your product. Do it in-house, as a sort of a business unit. So we came up with this tiny little refrigerator, which we called Chotuku. And it didn't use a compressor. It used solid state cooling chips. And using that, we were able to innovate that product. The idea at the time was that, the penetration of cooling products in India, especially in rural areas, was very low. And we thought that a very low priced, very small, compact product might work there. I think it wasn't a successful product, but it gave us a lot of insight into understanding rural habits on cooling. And we discovered that the most useful thing that rural people found was storing milk. So instead of it going bad and having to consume it immediately. So I think that there are many things that one has to experiment with continuously to come up with good innovative products.
Can you tell us a bit about your work in the aerospace division? Because I did read somewhere that you played an important role in India's mission to the moon.
Yes, Ravi, that's a very interesting, we were known in India for working with sheet metal, with our refrigerator, furniture, especially with the Almirah, which became sort of synonymous with our name. And I think what happened was that the Indian Space Research Organization was looking for someone who could be really skilled at sheet metal work because when they decided to make the launch vehicles for the satellites, they needed to make the first stage engine. There was a lot of sheet metal forming, and it had to be very accurate, etc. So Dr. Abdul Kalam, whom I'm sure most people have heard of, Dr. Kalam was actually a wonderful scientist and very, very innovative himself. Later became president of India. He came to meet me one day and essentially said that, look, we need this product. Nobody's able to make it. Our own engineers are not able to make it. Can you please help us? And when I discussed it with my father, because he was someone who liked to do something new every day. And so he got very excited about it. And he said, I want to go and see the ISRO facilities. So off he went to Trivandrum in the south of India to see the research organization, the Indian Space Research Organization. And he was so impressed with what the Indian engineers and scientists were doing there that he came back to Bombay and told me that doesn't matter how long it takes or how expensive it is, but I think we should be doing this. And it was his, real challenge. He loved a challenge. He something different, something new. For those who know Gujarati, like Farad, his what he would say is "Aje navu sukidu," which is essentially "What have you done new today?" And so that's what started us off. And I must say that our engineers and technicians and all took on this challenge. And within a very short time, they were able to demonstrate to ISRO that this was a special conical nozzle, which had both conic, it had convex and both convex and the opposite. So
Concave.
it was both, yeah. And they actually were able to do it. ISRO tested it out. They found it perfect. And that's how our association with ISRO started. Every single launch vehicle in India has been powered by the first stage rocket engine that we have developed over the years in association with ISRO. And so, of course, this led to our aerospace division then being formed. And Dr. Kalam, again, was very keen that India develop a cruise missile. I think he recognized that the importance of India being able to develop its own defense industry long before, it was understood like as it is today, how essential it is. And so again, he came back to me and said, look, this is the product I want you to make. Will you make this, all the mechanical parts of this supersonic missile? And of course, I had no other choice but to say yes. And it took us 6 years to develop the first prototype. But, and we were sort of led on to the wrong direction with some erroneous drawings, etc. But all that got sorted out. And now, ever since then, every single one of these supersonic missiles, which in India are known as BrahMos, all the mechanical components have been made by us.
Congratulations, and that sounds like an amazing journey. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about something else that you've mentioned, and that is the example of the Tatas putting their ownership in a charitable trust. And referring to that, you said that this, if I'm quoting you correctly, that this is a good example for the world. Could you just walk us through what that model is for those of us who are not familiar with it, and then comment on whether it might be a good model for Godrej someday?
Yeah. So, when Jamshydji Tata started out, I think that, you know, at his passing, he put all his shares, the ownership of his shares, into a charitable trust, which became there were a number of Tata trusts which today jointly own Tata Sons, own 60+% of Tata Sons. Now, my point here was that, this was a well understood and established that founders could leave their shares to charity, and those shares would continue, as part of the ownership of the company. Unfortunately, in the 60s, the government changed the tax law in such a way that this was no longer permitted. And the reason I mentioned this at the time in that interview was that, organizations need an anchor, and the charitable trusts give that anchor in the sense that it is the whole purpose of those shares is not to be sold, that those shares will control the organization, that the money will go to charity. And in our own case, my grandfather left all his shares also to a public charitable trust. And it was around that time, when around the 1960s, 70s, that it was fairly common in many of the large groups at that time that this was possible. And then the whole tax law changed, and so it is not possible to do that anymore. And my point was that the government should actually change the tax law in such a way that founders and others can donate their shares to a charity, and that the charity can continue to hold them in a tax-free atmosphere, and it is for the good of the public. So I think that we all recognize that Tatas don't have an owner as such. The charitable trusts own the organization, and since the purpose of those shares is to do charity, I think that there is no this whole business of succession, who will control, etc. I mean, a lot of these things get sorted out through that holding. And it was very topical at the time when I had that interview, when I said that, this is a very good system. It should be improved and continued. And the government should amend the tax law in such a way that charities can continue to hold shares in commercial companies.
Got it. Talking a bit about the handing over to the next generation, it's a topic that has come up a lot today. I want to hear your thoughts on how you convey and communicate the values of one generation to the next generation. And I know that in the Godrej group, you had a lunch meeting, I think, on Thursdays, every day, where the entire family would get together. And could you talk a little bit about that as a mechanism for creating communication within the family, and any other ideas you have on how to promote healthy communication within the generations?
Well, I mean, if I look back, my father's generation and my grandfather's generation, I think they put a lot of emphasis on family togetherness and decision making that was, where the family got together to take all major decisions. The importance of communication in the family. I'm sure these are all topics that your conference and many other, family business conferences would focus on. I think that the reason, why we used to meet on Thursdays for lunch was essentially that, to exchange information, to take, take views on decisions, what to do, what not to do, etc. It was a very good system. I mean, when it lasted, and for as long as it lasted, I think it was a good. I think the problem is that maybe the earlier generations probably were not able to inculcate the importance of communication within the family to the next generation. So I think what happened essentially was that the next generation didn't think this was a good idea. They thought it was a waste of time. Uh, I think it eventually led to a breakup of our business groups. And it is unfortunate that I think I would blame myself as much as anyone else that, to keep the communication within the family, especially in a very diverse group, uh, where all individuals' sort of dreams and ideas, are very different. So how do you bring it together? I mean, one idea was that if you meet regularly every week, you would be able to have shared visions. But I think developing a shared vision is a complex issue, as I'm sure you've realized, and everyone in the room probably knows that very well. And so it essentially was a good system whilst it lasted. I think we were not able to inculcate the importance of communication to the next generation. And that's what eventually led down to a breakdown in communication.
Speaking of which, I don't know if you would care to comment a little bit about the way in which the separation happened in the Godrej group, and that it has been non-public and non-acrimonious, has been held up as an example that if you must have a breakup, let it be done this way. Would you care to talk about what allowed the separation to happen the way it did?
Yeah. Well, you have to look at the time that this happened. It was a time when there was a very acrimonious misunderstanding, is the most charitable way to put it, in the Tata group between Mr. Ratan Tata and his successor, Cyrus Mistry. I think because it led to a breakdown in trust, and it became extremely acrimonious, and the newspapers loved to have headlines on it every day. I think we all realized when it was, when we were talking about whether we should separate, and there was a demand from the younger generation, especially, that they wanted to go on their own ways. And so I think seeing that example, we all resolved and agreed that we would do it in as good a way as we possibly could, without acrimony, without publicity. And I must say, to the credit of everyone in our family, that they kept to it, and nobody ran off to the press to complain about somebody else. And so let me put it this way, that I think it's being held up as a good example, but it had a background to it. We realized that the alternative was very damaging, and would have damaged not only individuals, but also our family name, and which is our main brand name for for everyone in the group. Even after the separation, we came to an agreement on how the Godrej name and the brand would be used by different parts of the family and different companies, etc. And we have a very good agreement on that. Now, of course, everyone can be skeptical and say it has to stand the test of time, but hopefully it will.
I have just maybe one or two more questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So if you have your questions, please start getting them ready, and the mic runners, please be ready to go up to the person asking the question. Could you speak a little bit up to the next generation within the Godrej Enterprise Group, and how you see that transition happening?
Yeah. Well, I think we are a small family. It's just my sister and I now in the Godrej Enterprises Group. My sister has two daughters, I have a son and a daughter. My son joined the business. He was there for 8 years. I think he found it a little too stressful uh, and said that he wanted to take a break, which I thought would be a year or so, but which has got extended. My daughter had never been interested in business, so uh, my sister's two young children, the elder girl lives outside of India, and the younger one, who is now taking a much greater role in Godrej Enterprises Group. Narika is a lawyer. She actually practiced law for a number of years, and so what I see is it's a rather odd thing, but in my generation, we are all engineers. You mentioned that I went to Illinois Tech. Uh, and I think in the next generation, for whatever reason, rightly or wrongly, there are no engineers. And for an engineering company, to be sort of run by a non-engineer, I think is a big challenge. Personally, I think it's a challenge because there are technical challenges that you can say, of course, professionals are there to do it, but it makes a lot of difference. I find that when technical decisions are being taken and I'm part of that discussion, I have a different perspective on the final decision. And so it is important, I think, uh, for an engineering company to be sort of more sort of for decisions about what to do, what not to do. I think knowledge of engineering would be a good asset. So that does put the next generation in a bit of a bind. I think in Godrej Enterprises, the only one which really does have the engineering businesses. The other businesses are more consumer businesses, property development, etc. So it's not so technical. And so I think Nairika, is learning. She's picked up lots of things. She's taken a lot of interest in digital transformation. She's taken interest in innovation, in brand building and communication, etc. All these are, critical things. I mean, she will learn, I'm sure, slowly, the sort of nuances of what we do as an organization. Uh, but this is not insurmountable. This is a challenge, but it's not insurmountable. But uh, my personal belief is that I think family businesses have to evolve to becoming professionally run businesses over time. The family, of course, has to play a very important role, especially at the board level, and for the reputation of the organization, the family name in being involved, etc. But I think that the more professional uh, the company becomes over time, I think it's only to the benefit of family businesses. And when after my father passed away, I was actually the only family member in the organization. Everyone else was a professional, and I did see the importance of that. That it is critically important to be able to professionalize, and the decision making should be much more democratic rather than being autocratic with one person. And I think that's what will allow family businesses to thrive.
Thank you. I have one final short question, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A, so please get your questions ready. I'm wondering, we've talked about the responsibilities of a family member to a family business. Overall, as you look back, would you say it's more of a privilege and a pleasure or a burden?
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's the former. I think it's a privilege and a pleasure. Uh, I mean, it can only be burdensome if you organize yourself in a way that you're taking on a big burden. I think if you organize yourself uh, in such a way that you do enjoy your job and your work, and that you do realize that it's a privilege, I think, it's the only right way to go. I have never felt, I mean, frankly, the older I've got, the more time I spend outside the company following my own interests and hobbies. And I don't find, that is a problem anymore. I don't feel like I have to be involved in every decision. There are only a few decisions that I need to be involved in. And so yes, overall, I would, reiterate what you said was that it is definitely a privilege and a pleasure.
Wonderful. Okay, any questions from the floor? Mike here to Vedant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godrej. I think you mentioned the next generation is now coming in, and they had some different expectations from the business. I'm curious about, so every generation had different reasons for getting in, where the founders often did it out of necessity. Generations after, sometimes they felt compelled to do so. And with each generation, there's a bit more optionality created in the paths that you can take. There's much less necessity. So the calculus looks very different. So I wonder, in the next generations of the Godrej family, what have you seen as the motivations that inspired the ones who do come back to actually end up coming back to the business? And how do you distinguish between the ones who felt compelled to enter the business versus the ones who are actually motivated, because that has repercussions for the business and the person and the individual itself?
Yeah, well, that's really a great question. And, it's complex in the sense that as children grow up, they get influenced clearly by their parents, by their peers, by other family members, etc. And as you rightly said, the options today are much more than they used to be. In my case, I never once thought of not working in the company. It didn't even strike me that I should be thinking of doing something on my own. But today, that is very much the case. I think, and I think it's a welcome change, because I think if you feel that you've been compelled to do something, you're never going to feel happy with that choice. So I think that also for family businesses, to be run professionally is also become very common, and I think it's well understood that the only difference between a family business or a family-owned business and a non-family-owned business, or where the family has only a tiny share. Essentially, that decision, it's about the influence of the family. It's in terms of where the business goes. But running the businesses, it has to be professional. Now, whether a family member should be a part of a family business or not, I think that's again, very personal for families. And there are many large giant businesses which are owned by families, but not run by families anymore. So I think one should be open to all these ideas. I don't think that compelling youngsters, if they don't have a passion for wanting to be in the business, it just doesn't make any sense. But then I think there is also a responsibility for parents and other family members, to constantly talk about the values in the company, how to build the values, what affects brand building, what affects reputation. So these are all critical issues, and the more families communicate, I mean, going back to the earlier question of Ravi about why those Thursday lunches broke down, I think communication really eventually is the most important thing. I mean, if we can have a good level of communication, many issues can be discussed and sorted out.
Next. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Godrej. My name is Siddharaj. You might not know, but my family business provides industrial material transportation services for one of your manufacturing locations in Dahej, Gujarat. My question for you is, growing up, how was your relationship was with your family members all together involved in the business?
Yeah. Well, my father always was what shall I mean, to put it he was a tinkerer in the sense he always, if something was to be fixed, he would want to fix it. And because we had a common passion in sailing, we would go out on the water, something needed to be done, then we'd work together, get it. So what I was getting at essentially was that, when you're when the family does things together, it has a huge influence. And so I think that family members get involved at a young age, by this personal association of doing things, of listening to what the elders are saying and doing. For instance, when I was in high school, throughout that time, my grandfather used to have dinner with us every night. And every night, even at his elderly age, he would want to climb the stairs to go up. He wouldn't take the elevator. And so I think you learn by example. My uncle, for instance, had a huge influence on me. All my interest in sustainability, environment, and all of that has come from him. And that our family had a shared view of environment and greenery and trees and that sort of thing, you see. So I think family members do play an enormous role in shaping young minds. I mean, young minds from association, do learn an enormous amount.
Thank you so much.
Any question? Yeah. Farhan, here. Right in front. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Jamshyd. And thank you for introducing me to Ravi, because I've really enjoyed my day here. And every time I come to a conference like this, there's so much I take away by way of learning itself. So thank you. But Jamshyd, I wanted to ask, to follow through on one of the points you made, that, as time progresses, more and more of our family businesses, family need not necessarily be directly involved in the management and operation of the business. But as that happens, how should the family still influence, and what are the positive influences that the family can play? And there are a couple of things here. In the course of the day today, we've been talking about a lot of Indian firms don't invest enough in R&D, and that's one of the things. The other thing is sustainability, which you really embody sustainability as a model for many of us in other businesses as well. So these are two areas where I think, in terms of driving innovation and driving things which are sort of long-term, good for the nation as a whole and the planet as a whole, these are not things which immediate managers and necessarily professional managers who are looking at the short term in terms of results, delivering results, the family can play a significant role in that. So can you comment a little on that?
Yeah.
It'd be very helpful.
Thanks, Farhad. Thank you very much for attending this conference. As you know, Ravi was very keen to have you, especially since I just wasn't able to make it there also for this conference. So thank you for doing that. I think the family, assuming that they are still interested in being on the board, and can actually contribute in positive ways to the board discussions. I think that role, will have to be strengthened in the sense that family members, if they are not involved in the business, they are not operationally involved in any way, how do they become good board members? I think that's a very big subject, and I'm sure that it must be occupying a lot of your mind space with all the family business enterprises that you've been involved with and chairing the international group on family businesses. So how do family members become good board members? I mean, that's a important question we really should think about. I think that board members are, as you well know, there are all types of board members. Some look at only financial aspects. Others are much more involved in other areas like innovation and product development, etc. But I think as businesses, family businesses become more professional, and the family's role, I think, essentially will have to be on the brand and on values. How does the family protect its values and brand in a changing, business environment? I think that will become quite important and crucial. I think professional managers, don't always have that deep association for the brand and for the values of the family. And to the extent that family members can continuously meet senior managers and talk about these areas, would be very helpful and useful in the history and, as the company develops. You mentioned a couple of things like innovation, R&D, etc. I think that part of the problem in India, as you well know, is that you have to be able to have the patience for doing innovative things. I mean, my family, we talked about the aerospace business. It actually took 20 years for that business to break even. And is it I mean, I was very clear in my mind that that's important for me, and I want to see it through. Whereas many in the family were not. And so this raises the interesting question: can a professional manager ever have that sort of compelling position and say, no, I believe in something and I'm going to do it, irrespective of whether the rest of the board and the family, etc., think it's a good idea or not? I mean, these become complex questions. And so innovation, if, I am absolutely sold on the idea that every business, if they do not innovate, will really have no future. And I think there have been lots of studies shown about how businesses can easily be made irrelevant because of some wonderful innovation somewhere else. And so that's really a very strong business risk that has to be looked at carefully. I think R&D is an area, basic R&D especially. I think as your brother Naushad has written extensively, that, I mean, it has to be done at universities. It has to be done in cooperation with business. I mean, that's the right sort of model, as opposed to the model that has existed in India, where it's essentially, government-owned R&D organizations that have done it. So that model hasn't worked. We've seen that, and that has to change. But I mean, it is very frustrating when you find that something you expect, some development that you expect, product development, etc., could take 2 years, 3 years, takes 5 years. It is frustrating. So I think we do have to develop ways in which we can be much more sort of on top of the whole idea of how to do innovation in a sort of an efficient way, in a timely way. I mean, all these eventually count because they could easily be sort of put on the sideline if you don't have a deep belief in it, and that there, especially to do with professional managers. Yes, there are professional managers who do believe in it very strongly and will stay with it. But others will sort of wilt if the board pressures and says, well, what about the financial results? So I think this how to find that medium is a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah, just to close out the session, because I know we have to let you go, I wonder if you have any thoughts on the internationalization of the Godrej Group. Does it trouble you that a company like Haier, which is, I think, a younger operation than Godrej in, say, making consumer products, is a global brand, but is Godrej a global brand?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot has got to do with our background in India. When the country opened up to foreign investment in '91, I mean, you had a whole lot of Indian companies that had never sort of been subject to international competition, And what we did realize at the time was that we were hopelessly behind on technology, on innovation in products, etc. My reaction at that time, which was the wrong one, was to form a joint venture. And I formed a joint venture with General Electric. It didn't work out. Within 8 years, we had separated. But that also put us back. That, rather than trying to rely more on ourselves, I thought that, we would get a leap ahead with a big international organization. But that didn't work. I think it didn't work for many Indian companies, but that's a totally different topic to discuss. But yes, it does bother me that we have not been able to catch up and be competitive. And many Indian companies who came in around that time, also because they were much larger in scale, they were able to invest in India, and be prepared to lose money for 20 years. This is just something that Indian companies at that time were not able to do. So it was a matter to do with financial strength and the ability of the company to compete against these very large international organizations.
Thank you, Jamshyd. I think our time is up and you need to go to your next event. Thank you. I'm delighted we could have you virtually this time. It's just another small step to get you here in person, which I hope will happen in the near future.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience, especially to Farhad for being there.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.